Now let's hear some words from Jimmy's wife, James Walter's wife, Lolita.
And thank you so much for coming and honoring his life, celebrating. Oh my goodness, James and I met when I came back from Japan, and I was about 10, and he was 11. But we got to really know each other when we were 11 and 12. And we liked each other, but of course we were kids, you know? And everyone knew him as Jimmy. And over the years, I've always called him James. And our fifth meeting together, he Facebooked me, he poked me on Facebook. And he said, you know, Lolita, we've met 4 times before. Actually, just before I go on to that, I just remembered when James actually came with John Horn to a nightclub that I was topless dancing at. And of course, the Buddhist organization were like, oh my gosh, what an embarrassment. But James came with John Horn. And I would not dance. I would not dance at all. But I told James, if you want, I will come back next day and I'll dance for you. And I was like, I can't dance for John Horn. He's like a brother. But you, on the other hand, I like you. So anyways, that was when I was 18 and he was 19. But fast forward back again to when we were 44 and 45, and he Facebook poked me, and I love him so much. But when he wanted to date me, and I was like, really? You look so much like Betty, you know? How can I kiss your sister? But he's like, really? And I was like, even that look you just did, really? That's Betty. Oh my gosh, you know? So he goes, I'm gonna work on that. So we dated, and he's like, oh my gosh, Lolita, you have been my soulmate since we were kids. And he asked me to marry him, and I said, really? I gave him that Betty look, really? And he said, of course, you are my heart, and as much as my daughter is, you know, and I need you, and I want you in my life. And I said, thank you, because absolutely, I will. And of course, he picked my birthday for us to have a wedding, because he didn't want to forget. He didn't want to forget our wedding anniversary. And I was like, oh, sure, cheat out on a gift for me, right? And as we were married, oh my gosh, there were just constant, we were assailed with challenges in our life. And I mean, we had separation within 4 months of our marriage. And he was like, Lolita, I'm so tired of you sticking your foot up my ass. On a take on the ass comment. Because he was like, you know, you're always trying to fix me. I said, but you're always wanting to fix everybody else, right? And I said, you want that for Sarah. And that's the thing, is that we fought mostly because I wanted him to become the man that I knew he was, and not just the little boy, Jimmy. And I wanted him to do that for his daughter as well. And so we would fight, and then I would chant. He made me chant so much because I loved him dearly. And that was the biggest gift, actually, that he gave to me, was that he made me pray to make our relationship work. And even though, oh my gosh, even though we were separated for a good 8 months, I would say, but we were dating each other still, even though he's like, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. But we were still separated. And it just so happens that the dear man that actually rolled me down the aisle, he passed about 6 months after we got married. And his wife allowed James to actually live in the condo that was directly behind, or catty-cornered on the next street behind mine. So we could walk to visit each other even though we were separated. And it was amazing because our relationship grew. even more because of that. And so, just like in this quote that's in this his program, it's about human revolution. That was the song that played when it was our march, when we were getting married, that you have to take responsibility, and I will take responsibility in my life too, for us to live together and work together. And, oh my goodness, within about a year and a half to 2 years, James actually was diagnosed. After he came back and moved in with me after Sarah finished high school in her 1 year, and he was diagnosed with cancer, and then another assailant of how we were going to get along with each other and stay together as a family. And if it wasn't for Daimoku and the support of so many people, I mean, we're not just talking Buddhists, there are also a lot of other people from different faiths, Christians, Catholics, Muslims, Sikhs, dear Hindu friends. The prayer was united in praying for James's health to become better. And so I felt it. I mean, oddly, I really felt like I have to keep fighting. Because there were plenty of times where I felt like, he wants to leave and give up, why can't I? Why can't I? Because I knew I needed to be stronger for him. And also keep my foot up his butt, you know? And he actually didn't really want a lot of people around because he was so macho and really, which is perfect. I really adored that about him because he was very manly and he wanted to do things the right way and wanted everyone else to do the things the right way. And so, when he was struggling, actually, no one got to see the struggles. I got to see the struggles because he trusted me. He trusted me to share that honestly with everybody so that they would realize that we have to work through the struggles and support one another. And so, when he was on the ground and he was getting sick everywhere, and I would still have to go to work, and I was so fortunate to have the people that I worked for give me time off so that I could spend time with James. Between them, I would go there, and then I come home. Fortunately, I work within minutes of where we live, and like all of you said, he was always thinking about everyone else, so he said, I don't want anyone to see me like this. I want them to have good memories. And I said, you know what, they're gonna remember you if they get to see you, and they're gonna actually be able to give you the prayers, and you'll feel that energy. And I said, so please let people come and visit you, please. And so he said, okay. The first night he got to say hello to everybody, and truly this was amazing because the night before, or actually that early morning, he was on the ground and he was bleeding, he was bleeding blood throughout his mouth. He was vomiting blood, and there were buckets of it, and I was cleaning up after him, and he was on the ground and he was fighting me. He wouldn't let me pick him up. I was like, babe, just let go, I got you. He only weighed about 108 pounds. And so I called the paramedics, and 3 men had to pick my husband up off the ground and put him into bed. And I sat in front of the Gohonzon. I put the bed in front of our altar at home, and I just prayed and prayed. And I had to have the courage to call Everett and his family members so that they could come and be there. And I said, babe, now it's not about you anymore. It's about what you can give back to your family. And so he said, okay, thank you. And he said, I will. And so everyone came and they talked, and he said, I love you, and had conversations, and I'm so glad for all of you. And also all the people who chanted for us. I felt the strength, the prayers. When I felt like I couldn't do it anymore, there were so many times when I felt like, how can I do this anymore? But even now, I still feel people's prayers and support. That he always said that I was a strong one, and that I'm going to be able to do and carry on for him, for Sarah, and for my daughter, and my son, and all of his family. He desperately wanted his mother and I to really get along. And fortunately, one morning, he was with his mother for a good hour, and he got up. This was the morning before he passed. The morning before he passed, at about midnight, I heard him and his mother talking. I was laying on the sofa. I really couldn't sleep. I was always kind of, listening to hear where James was at, if he needed me or something. And so apparently he ate with his mother, and they talked and had a wonderful conversation. And at about 2 o'clock, it was my turn. I crawled into bed with James. I held his face and I kissed him passionately. And he goes, don't do that, I'm so gross, and look at me. And I said, you're so beautiful to me. You're so beautiful to me. Thank you so much for everything. We held hands. And this was something I'm going to share with you guys, because he said, Lolita, if everyone could feel this way, there would be no wars, because men and women would get along, and why would they have a war if they felt this? I actually got to be a little intimate with my husband, and he actually responded, which was like near impossible, because his body was so ravaged with a cancer. It had spread from his pancreas, liver metastases, and lung metastases. And he still kept going. He still kept going. And as John shared, that he took two deep breaths and smiled twice after each breath. And that last one was the determined breath of, like, I gotta do this, I gotta go, I don't want to leave everybody, but I gotta go. And then he let go, he was gone. And it was the most courageous I ever saw my husband, really, because he was always so kind, but I also saw the tough parts. Didn't we, Sarah? Yes. But that was because of love. And he taught me that it's because he loved me that he wanted more of us. Every one of us. He wanted us to be the best we could be. So if we really push ourselves, we have to push ourselves continuously for the sake of James, because that would make his spirit really happy. So once again, thank you all so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mrs. Walters. I read this excerpt at the before he passed. This was my last lecture, as Mom says. James, I was always lecturing James and everybody apparently. So, okay. The Buddha is always thinking of the best way to lead all people on the road of the mystic law toward the attainment of Buddhahood. So immense are his mercy and concern for them. The mercy and concern of the eternal Buddha are embodied in the Gohonzon. However, only when we have powerful positive faith based on a consistent daily practice can we manifest the powers of the Buddha and the law inherent in the Gohonzon. All people live with ever-present concerns. For instance, a pitcher is preoccupied with his technique and winning ball games, winning them. That is the constant thought of a pitcher. A business manager is obsessed with how to build his enterprise and develop it further. A mother is constantly concerned with her baby's health and welfare, even when she is sleeping. Excuse me. These are the thoughts that never leaves one's mind or one's constant thought. Such preoccupations do not, however, stem from jihi, or compassion. In the deepest sense of the word, in contrast, the Buddha's never-ending concern is to enable all people to enter the supreme path of Buddhahood. Tokunyu Mujodo, it's what we pray, what we chant in our prayers, and attain enlightenment quickly. Sokujoju Bushin. His boundless mercy ranges over the three existences of past, present, and future. We are fortunate to have been introduced to the great power and compassion embodied in the Gohonzon. Such a noble state of mercy is not attained by morality or ethics alone. No matter how strongly we try to summon up the same kind of power as the Buddha within ourselves, we cannot do it through purely mental efforts. It is manifested in our minds and in our behavior as we elevate our fundamental state of life through our practice of true Buddhism. The Ongikuden clearly states that the compassion of this Buddha's Ichinen comes from only Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, the power originally inherent in all life. As members of the lay organization of Nichiren Shoshu, our constant thought is to assure that happiness of the people, a prosperous society, and a peaceful world occurs. To our great joy, Nichiren Daishonin says that not only he, but his disciples as well, are inherently endowed with a limitless compassion. When compared with the Daishonin's mercy, of course, ours may seem negligible. But no matter how undeveloped it may be now, as long as we chant to the Gohonzon and act courageously in our respective fields and communities, we are striving to develop a life condition like the Daishonin's. We should be confident, therefore, that the Soka Gakkai International is based on genuine mercy, and that our victory means to secure the kind of lasting happiness and peace for all people to seek. Although it may seem insignificant to pray for a Buddha's happiness, a neighbor's happiness, teach him about true Buddhism, and give guidance for the sake of his growth, such activities are the highest practice of constant thought and help develop in us the great mercy of the Buddha. By reciting Gongyo and chanting Daimoku every morning and evening, we connect to the constant thought of Nichiren Daishonin embodied in the Gohonzon, no matter where we are or what our circumstances may be. Therefore, by continuing our practice faithfully, we will attain Buddhahood. If we maintain a strong sense of mission and responsibility, striving continually for our own development and for others. Once again, thank you so much. Just as James strived to really reach out to every person, this is what we were taught by our mothers and our fathers, and we are grateful to be able to share this with you and continue on in the future. Thank you very much.